Hi, I'm Hallie, and I want to welcome you to the Odd Life Podcast. That's spelled AWED, which stands for Awake, Well, and Empowered. In this space, you will hear inspirational stories, candid and heartfelt conversations, as well as advice from experts, all with the intention of helping women like you live odd AF. Because I believe the more of us that live awake, well, and empowered, the better this world will be. So thank you for being here and welcome to your odd life. Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, my daughter, Avarie. Avarie is a sports reporter for Her Dad Sports, and she also is a social media strategist for the company. And we're talking today about the evolution of that job, how it's come about, some tough stuff she had to go through last year with a relationship that helped her become a bit of who she is today because of it. And we also just chit chat about the job itself, some ups and downs, the challenges she has. If you have a daughter, a niece, a sister, a woman that's wanting to get involved in the sports world, that loves sports, maybe Avarie is someone to pay attention to. She has been out there. She's got a lot of presence on social media. And I think it's important for young women, especially, to see other young women doing something out in a world that's more often dominated by a man, and to see themselves in a world that maybe they could thrive in as well. I think we need more and more women in the world of sports for sure. I think it's important for perspective. I think it's important for compassion. I think it's important for women to be out there in the world of sports. This is not just for men. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. I'm going to do a little bit more on the video and leave a lot more stuff in because some things are just visual, like why I have a wound on my eyelid right before the podcast. We'll share that in the video. So if you want a little bit more, go check it out. Otherwise, we'll have a more condensed version on the audio. And so here's my conversation with my daughter, Avarie Howard.
You were going to give a story about your eye.
Oh, I am going to give a story about my eye. I'm kind of glad I'm wearing them right now because
the cover.
So yeah, I just, before I got on the camera, for those of you that are joining us via video over on YouTube, if you'd like to see the shenanigans happening. But I was just explaining to Avarie that I was trying to put my headphones on, getting ready for this.
Headphone massacre.
It's the headphone. So my headphone was kind of caught up and it snapped, and it snapped me right on the top of the eye. And the eyelid is so tender. Oh, it's so painful. So I'm probably going to get a little bit of a goose egg. I was like, what is that spot? Did I have mascara? What is that? And I'm like, oh my God, I freaking damaged my eye. Yeah, I can't put anything on it because it's like bloody. I don't want to put any makeup on it.
Like Wilson bumped you in the head.
No, my own self.
Good.
Self-inflicted wound with my headphones. So as you can tell, I have Avarie back today. You were here episode 10, and we talked a lot about your early soccer career, how you got involved in sports, how you found your major, those kinds of things. Lots happened since we last talked. Was it last fall?
It was last fall, I think, like October.
Yeah, so last year at this time, roughly. So give us a quick update. What's changed? What have you been up to? Fill us in on what's happened since our last chat.
What's not changed? So at this time a year ago, I was basically trying to navigate the world of my first job. I was hired for a marketing company. They had a position for a social media strategist, and I was being slotted into a position within the company where they knew I had an interest in sports, and they knew that I knew their other colleagues in the sports division, but they were kind of using me to fill a need that they had at the time, which was with their restaurant. They had a restaurant. And so I was just kind of like, okay, like, I'm employed, I have a job, and I'll have some experience with sports. We'll figure it out. And so I did social media for a restaurant for about 5 months. And then I would kind of help the sports team do their social posting. Well, at this time, I kind of was like, okay, it is what it is, but this is not my jam. But I'm sure it'll turn into something different. I'm just going to keep showing up. And I got my hockey games on the weekends and basketball games on the weekends to work. So I still had that.
So to recap, Avarie was working freelance for the University of Nebraska, Omaha, doing coverage for them. So
Mhm.
meaning interviews with coaches, pregame interviews with
Yes.
players, things like that. So that's a freelance thing that she had going on since leaving school. Okay,
Yeah.
so back to
Yes. Sorry, I forgot that detail. So at the time, our sports team, I was considered to be a part of it, was about 5 people big. And so the week to week just was kind of random content creation. And then it would get sent to me and I would do the posting for all of it. So now, fast forward, our team is now 24 people big, and I am the senior social strategist slash reporter. And I basically manage a lot of people now.
that's
But
crazy.
it is crazy. And it's funny when people introduce me within my company to other people or clients, they basically say, "This is the voice of our company." And it's always weird to hear that
Mm.
because I'm the person that has created the voice. So I went from taking videos of hamburgers and french fries, literally,
We talked a lot
you know,
about that. That was not a
yeah,
favorite part
and
of your
anyway,
job, but
it's like you have to do that, and
yeah,
that's what they needed me for at the time, and they were going through some business changes, and that's part of the company and part of the business. And this was a sports bar and grill. That's
yeah,
like the
okay.
marketing company. They had a restaurant because they wanted it to be a living experience of the products that we put out that are sports related. We do marketing for sports companies, or at the time, that's what we did. Now we basically are our own sports company,
That's right.
but we worked with a Nebraska affiliated publishing basically at the time, and so we wanted it, the bar, to be a living experience of that. So what you read in a magazine or the yearly yearbook, you could walk into this restaurant and experience that.
Mhm.
Just the wallpapers were Nebraska. There was live events, just very Husker focused. Where now we've kind of shifted to it being a just sports bar in general, where we cover Omaha, Creighton, and Nebraska, and host all kinds of events there because that's what our team does. We cover every event under the sun in the state of Nebraska. So just to see where the restaurant has evolved to from when I started to
Yeah,
where I am now is really interesting. And so, yeah, on a week to week basis, now I have nothing to do with the restaurant pretty much. And like I said, being the voice of the sports side of the company, there's a lot of different people that be posting, but most of it always comes through me. And I have been one of the main people there since the beginning, which is just really crazy. And
mhm,
so now I actually have assigned beats. So Nebraska football is one of them, and that's just been the dream come true situation. And there's still
yeah,
so much ground to tackle there that I feel like this season was such a learning experience, which we can get into. But yeah, that's been crazy. And then obviously I still have the Omaha stuff, which is great. So Omaha hockey, even though I work for them still part time to cover them, my company kills two birds with one stone, and that's my beat as well. And so I go do the hockey assignments as well. And then now the basketball season is ramping up. That'll be the next thing. So since we last talked, it's really been a
yeah,
whirlwind of all positive things. And
yeah,
like I said, what hasn't changed? There's been a lot more than just that, which has
yeah,
been a big thing. But in terms of work and
yeah.
everyday life, that's kind of the biggest change.
Well, that's what I'm talking about because it's amazing. It's amazing what's transpired in a year. And it's funny because if you guys have watched the last episode or the last guest, I should say, I had my guest Sydney on, and Sydney and Avery are really good friends, and she
Yeah,
referenced Avery a lot in the episode. If you haven't watched it, you should really go watch her. She's a dynamic person, and I actually show pictures of the things that she's taken pictures of.
she's incredible, like incredible.
Insane. This girl's
Yeah,
24 years old. So both of you, my point of saying that is that both of you, so much has happened in a short amount of time. And we talked about this in episode 10 is when you started out at school, clueless of what you wanted to do. You're 18 years old, and now here you are, 24,
yeah,
and this is what your life looks like right now, and it's insane. And the connection here is it's very parallel to what Sydney's been going through. She kind of
yeah,
came in not really knowing, and then getting into what she's doing. It's what you guys are doing is pretty crazy. So
yeah.
my question for you about work is being now that you are a female in this role, in this environment, what are some challenges you've had in this role now? There's a couple different things I want to talk about. Being a
Yeah.
female
Mhm.
and then also being young
Mhm.
and doing the role that you are because you are
Yeah.
managing people and doing a role that maybe people would been working for years to get to where you're at right now.
Yeah.
So tell me about those challenges. If you've seen anything, if it's not been an issue, just kind of fill me in on that whole part of it.
Yeah. I'll first start off with I have to actually give a ton of credit to a lot of people that I do work with in this space for supporting me the way that they do. Whether it be my own coworkers or even people that have worked in the space here in Nebraska for a very long time. Stepping into the Nebraska football arena of media is crazy. It's wild. I've grown up a Nebraska football fan, and I
Yeah.
know what kind of coverage they get, but to be a part of that now is very interesting. People talk about football here every single day, and I don't even know how we come up with topics every day, but we do.
I
It's
know.
incredible. And you go to a press conference and there's 40 people there, where I'm used to at Omaha, you get your same old 5 to 6, 7 reporters, where here it is a whole ordeal, and they've been doing it for ages. They have connections with the sports information directors, the coaches. They know the ins and outs of everything. Procedurally, they get it. They've seen it all. Like, they've really been there through Nebraska's highs and lows. And so here I am coming in as a fan, and also straight out of college, where, I wasn't really entirely focused on Nebraska's success or downfall. I was just watching their games and really wasn't that much more invested. I went to Omaha, I was focusing on soccer. And so now I'm like re-immersed in all of it. And so I have to say that it was a little bit intimidating to even know where to begin to talk about it, because I've
Mhm.
been a fan, but these people have been writing about it. They have the connections. They know everything, it seems, if that's what it feels like. And so to start off as a 24-year-old female who's working this season for the first time, it's only been 3 months. You sit there and you kind of ask yourself, like, what do I know? Like,
Mhm.
what do I know? But at the end of the day, there's been times where I've had to tell myself that you are sitting in the same press box that they are. You are on the same sideline as them. Your eyeballs are seeing the same thing that they are right now. You might not have seen the things that they've done or seen before, but you can bring the same perspective that you have right now. And I also think that when I've been a guest on radio shows or podcasts or whatever it is, and I have my preview shows, sometimes the perspective that I offer that seems so simple, or just, I don't know, as complicated maybe, I've actually gotten feedback that it's refreshing. And that's been encouraging to hear, because I think there's so many of us that do critique sports, but we're never really in the shoes of those athletes. Like, I love
Mhm.
college football. I love college hockey, but I've never laced skates up. I've never put pads on. So
Mhm.
how critical can I truly be? And so I think to try and keep it positive, and to also just observe like what I can see on the surface level, and then what information I'm giving, why make it so much more complicated and try to figure it out when I've been an athlete too. When I saw people saying things on Twitter or whatever it was after a game, I'm like, they don't even know the half of it.
Yeah.
So I know on the other half, I don't want to be the person being that critical, or not even critical, but making assumptions or observations that's only really what you're saying at face value. And so I think being young, I've learned that that might be my power right now too, is just that I bring a different perspective because I haven't seen 30, 40, 50 years of Husker football or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. But I also like to embrace the student athlete experience that I had. So that's me just giving full transparency on the age thing, and also just the support I've gathered from my coworkers and other people that have worked in this space. The first time you put your own opinion out there about Husker football, like, it's really intimidating. You
Yeah,
probably
targeting your
think,
back. Yeah.
yeah, you're probably like, everyone thinks I'm an idiot, and and not team related. Like, if I don't know what even they see and don't see. I'm thinking like within the other writers, reporters, like, how can there be 50 people that report on the same thing and bring something different?
Yeah.
Almost impossible.
Yeah.
It feels that way. And so that's kind of our goal, to bring a different angle within my own company and then within myself as well. Now, when you get to the female aspects and being young on top of it, um, there are a lot of challenges.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest one, in full entire transparency, is I'm what it seems like to most of the athletes their age. When
Mhm.
they see me on a sideline, I probably look like I'm their age,
Yeah.
right? And so, as that's a benefit for a lot of ways for me to know how they operate and to know what their life looks like right now. Like, a lot of these writers and reporters that are much older, they know what social media is like, but they don't know what it's like growing up with it, that kind of thing. So I have that shared experience. And when it comes to hockey, even, like, some of them have been some of my great friends. And so I have a perspective that no one else would know, like, just because
Mm.
our casual conversations, or even just being a part of the same athletic department. So being the same age ish as some athletes
Yeah.
can be great. But when you are very young and on a sideline, I feel like sometimes I'm looked at like, what is her
Yeah.
true intention for being here? I am eligible, we'll put it that way. And that's not why I'm there, right?
Sure.
And then on the flip side, and like I said, it's weird to say this out loud, but it's something you don't realize. Like if I was in a different workspace,
Yeah.
that would feel odd. But because it's a public figure that you're putting yourself into, or because your job is to show up and look presentable and be on a sideline and to be in front of a crowd of people, all of a sudden you're subject to a lot of comments or other people's interests. It's like if I was
Yeah.
sitting in a cubicle dressed nice, I don't think someone will walk by and say
Yeah. Say
those
the
things.
things they say.
This
Yeah.
is technically my workplace, right? So there's that.
I want you to give an example of something that you've heard because I think it's important people hear
Yeah.
the crap that you deal with sometimes and just how ridiculous people are.
Um,
I'd love to have you
yeah,
give a couple examples. I know it sounds weird and putting yourself out there, but I think it's important for people to realize not only are you dealing with a high pressure job, but it's the other stuff
yeah,
that you have to deal with as well.
yeah. I guess what I meant on the last thing is like I'll cover a game and then a few days later, a few athletes will go through and like all of my stuff from previous. I love my job. I love my job. I really do. But then it makes the next time I go to a sideline a tad bit interesting because I didn't engage with any of that. And it's like, okay, thanks, I guess. So there's that aspect a little bit. But then when I'm on the sideline, I'm close to fans
Yeah.
and people just like to, whether they think it's a compliment or not, always getting something mentioned about your appearance from someone you don't know in a very interesting way is not really comforting when I'm doing work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, would that same comment be happening if I was 10 years older? I don't know. Like, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
But that's one thing at a young age you could have a battle, and it's just like, is it because I'm younger that you feel like you can say that to me? And I know this comes with the territory, and I've got to the point where it's empty. There's no value in any of it, obviously.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then I think there's also a really thing that I'm challenged with right now is, do people think I'm talented, or do they want something from me?
Mm,
Versus do they think I'm talented and they just want to give me a compliment? And it's not from the people that I work with. It's more or less like people that I'm around for like a first time, second time, or maybe they see me in passing on Twitter or a live or whatever that may be, or even coaches sometimes. Like I really appreciate when someone like of merit can value something that I'm saying, but then I have the second guessing in my head of, was that authentic and was that a true assessment of something that I noted? Or what do you want from me? Or what are you expecting me to say in return? I guess is sometimes what I'm wondering. And maybe that's the wrong way to think, but I've also just had enough experiences where I know that you just can't always take it at face value, unfortunately. And that's not to say like all these stories aren't to say that all of the men that I work with that aren't my coworkers are, terrible. Like I don't have any terrible experiences. It's just you don't realize how many things that are said that you kind of just let slide that when you look back on, you're like, well, that's not really normal, is it? And when you share these stories with people that don't work in this space, it's comparing how that would look at a workspace for them. It'd be entirely awkward and it'd be weird. So I think that's the thing right now that I'm challenged with as the youth aspect you're talking about, but also being a female as well. And at the end of the day, I've also learned that, and I think we've talked this before, but if I'm not going to take your criticism, I'm not going to take your advice. Or the other way around. If I wouldn't take your advice, I'm also not going to take your criticism. And so usually the opinions that I care about the most are the people that, once again, I work closest with, that they have experience or I have a genuine connection with. And so all the compliments from people, whether they be appearance based or talent based that I've never met, I appreciate all of them and I let them know that they're very nice to hear those things. But I don't determine my actual work value off of those things because I've just had, like I said, enough experiences where I can't tell what the true intention is behind those. And unfortunately, that's tough. So I think those are the two things right now that I couldn't have told you that a year ago, that I would be experiencing these things or have experienced them and I've already had to teach myself to get over them.
well, being your mom, and I don't, we didn't even talk about that at the very beginning. If you're new to the podcast, you haven't watched before, Avery's my daughter. So this is round 2 of our conversation. So if you want to watch our first one, go back to episode 10 to watch our little intro about things. But watching this from a parent perspective, I think that's one of my biggest worries is like I worry about people's access to you, and I worry about your safety sometimes. I'm really glad when you travel, you're traveling with a couple people. So
Mhm.
Avery gets to go to the away games as well to cover the Huskers. So that's been great. But she's also had to have people with her just to make sure that she's safe. And it's a group effort when they go.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's been interesting to see. And I don't know if you want to talk about this,
it's
but
okay.
the one that got me in the very beginning was when you covered the red white game for the very first
Mm,
time.
mhm.
And the
That's
red
fine.
white game is Huskers do a scrimmage every April, and that was the first thing you got to cover, I believe,
Mhm.
for football.
Yep.
And so you were there, you're down on the field with your manager at that time, Sasha, and somebody said something to you. I want you to tell the story because I think this is important that it highlights what you were just saying about the things people say to you and
Yeah.
having fans right there. Tell us about your first experience with this. Maybe this is where your thicker skin has had to come from because of this.
Yeah, it's an inter squad scrimmage. Basically, everyone has them. Nebraska just shows up like no other for them. So it's basically a packed stadium. And so I was on the sideline getting ready for the tunnel walk, and my backpack does say my name still because I have my Omaha women's soccer tag on it, just because I would never lose my backpack. And but it wasn't on me. So this is the part that I still don't know. I also do forget often that I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm on Instagram a lot. I'm at events. Like I'm interviewing people a lot. Like I forget that people might actually know my name, which is a really odd thing to think about. But these two guys said my name and they asked me a question about Omaha soccer. And I looked at them and I was like, man, I would feel really bad if I don't know who that is because they asked me an Omaha soccer question. And they asked me, I think it was like how the season had gone. And I was like, it was good. Like it was really exciting. Like my team had just won the Summit League the year previously. And so I think I just was a little bit like feeling conflicted to
And you were no longer on the team at this point,
no. And
obviously.
so that's why I was like, shoot,
You're like,
they clearly knew that I played on the team. Maybe it's someone's dad. But then I was like, it could have been someone's dad and they knew I wasn't on the team or whatever it may be. But I just was really like, shoot, I feel bad that I don't know who this is. Well, then here comes a tunnel walk. And the entire time, like I can see that they're not even watching the tunnel walk. These two men are just staring at me. And I mean, middle aged to upper middle aged men. And I went to go grab my clipboard on the floor or whatever. And one of them like went to go put their hand out on my shoulder and was like, you are just beautiful. And I kind of just was like, thanks. And I was like, now it's even more weird. Like if you knew of me from soccer or if you're a family member of someone I know, like that just feels odd to say. And it just was very interesting. And like I said, it's just a compliment at the end of the day, I guess. But to have their eyes on me the entire time as I'm just working and they're not even really paying attention to the actual game, it just felt very like unwarranted, I guess. And
mm-hmm,
so much so that I didn't even think about it though at the time. I just was like, okay, like thanks.
mm-hmm,
And I got upstairs and my boss asked me, she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, why? And she was like, that was not okay. And I was
mm-hmm,
like, oh, someone else like heard that or saw that and knew that that like felt uncomfortable. To me, I just was like, it is what it is. I'm gonna have to like, get over it. And I had a conversation with someone about it actually that evening because they were asking me about my job. And kind of weirdly enough, I hadn't had an experience like this in a while. And on the same day, she was like, how do you, being a female in all of this, like feel like you're welcomed in the space, or do you feel like you have to like ward off weird interactions and stuff? And I said, it's really funny you say that because today at the Husker football game, something happened to me that I didn't even think twice about. I just was like, okay, just with someone giving me a compliment that just felt kind of awkward. And then we talked about how if that translated to a different workspace, that would be really weird.
it's like
And I was like,
like I know, yeah, it's almost borderline harassment in a way.
but at the same time, you can't focus on that because then that's all you're going to focus about on this
Yeah.
part of the job. And I think that's the thing that's really tough too about this job sometimes is I think there's a misconception that if you are pretty and young and know a little bit, you want to be in front of the camera or you want to be around the athletes, or I feel like there's just, I think, guessing of your intention as to why you're in this profession. So I think having that, like, I have so many people that are so supportive about what I do, but then there's people that think that's why you're there. And so I battle that. Sometimes I always want people to know my intention and why I'm truly there. And so sometimes I overcompensate and make sure I'm making nothing awkward. So there's just times where like that comment that I just went and thought twice about it, but then to have conversations with other people about it that don't work in this space, and for
Yeah.
them to also be like, no, that's kind of like, that's odd. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, like,
Yeah.
okay.
It's kind of the same thing, the equivalent of, I mean, those men should know better, honestly, because if they have children of their own, would they want a random man making a comment to their daughter?
Yeah.
And clearly you said they were like the age of your dad. And you thought maybe, oh, they're my dad's friends. Who are these guys?
Probably, and honestly, probably a little bit older.
Yeah. The equivalent I think of is when young women are at a gas station by themselves and a man older engages in conversation. But you
Hmm.
just don't do that. It makes
Yeah.
women feel uncomfortable. They're already on guard. There's a lot of things happening in the world. And you just
Yeah.
don't do that. You don't sit and try and
Yeah.
engage a conversation with a young woman out of the blue. If there's something
Mhm.
going on when it's funny or whatever, sure, but not just engaging with a young woman because it can be very unsettling for young women these days. And this is what's
Yeah.
frustrating is I don't think many people realize that we
Mhm.
always have to be on guard as females. Men don't have to do that at all. Women have to. And so it's one more thing you have to prepare yourself for. And I think I've seen that evolution in you over the last year, just being a little more vigilant, a little more aware of your surroundings, what's going on,
Yeah.
because you are so out there. And that's, as a mom, that's a little hard for me sometimes
Yeah.
to not feel anxiety and fear about for you.
I obviously am giving specific examples,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a conscious stream of thoughts that happen sometimes during games because of it, but it's not the main focus of any event for me.
Sure.
And whether it's happening or not happening, it's not the focal point. So as much as we're like honing in on it, it's
Yeah.
really not like
Yes.
that overarching. It's just another component, I think, of within the last year, since we've talked about just the evolution of my last year, something that you kind of hear about, but then to experience it for your first time, and then it being a consistent here and there,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, so I see what they mean. Like it's not harassment, or it's just in micro things. And so,
Mhm.
but it sounds bad to say that, but like it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I get it.
if there was something that was so out of line, like, yeah, there'd be different conversations we'd be having here. And it's
Sure.
not like, oh, we're just, that's how it goes. Not really. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like,
Yeah.
am I going to go report a fan now? Or am I report someone like for message? Like, no, like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And that's really not the highlight of the whole thing. Like,
Oh, yeah. So many other
it's a,
things that are
yeah, it's
way
a
better.
negative. Yeah, right. There's a negative, but it's,
Yeah. It's just a
yeah,
challenge. That's
yeah.
been part of it a little bit that, like, okay, here we are. This is part of, I mean, we've all
Mhm.
seen the Erin Andrews situation. We've all seen what people have talked about, what they've had to deal with that are on a bigger stage. So you're not completely coming at this unaware
No,
that things like this
no.
happen, obviously. I guess I just wanted you to share some of those specifics so people know
Mhm,
what's happening in the world
mhm.
out there. And if you're at a game and you see it's happening with somebody else, maybe step in and say, that's inappropriate. Don't
Or
talk to her
just
like
step
that.
in and just, like, talk to the girl and be like, "You doing so good," or whatever. You just change the
Right.
conversation and,
Talk
like,
about what she's there for. This is
yeah,
one of my biggest pet peeves is when people compliment only on your appearance and has nothing to do with what's going on the inside, your talent, your intelligence, all those things. There's so much more to you. Obviously, everything about you is about what's going on inside. And when people only say things about the outside, that's frustrating.
mhm.
Um, so you're doing a very good job of handling
Thank
that.
you.
So
Yeah,
commend you on that.
thank you.
It's just as a mom, I want to go, I want to come
Mhm.
at people because it's frustrating. I know
Yeah,
you and I know how
mhm.
talented you are and how much you love sports. And this is
Yeah,
everything for you. And that's where I think just time will tell people this isn't a fluke. I didn't get here
yeah,
because of my looks. I got here
yeah,
because I know my shit and I know how to talk the game and I research, I watch all the game. Like those kinds of things will show eventually. I mean, they probably
yeah,
show now, but over
yeah,
time, it's going to be consistent.
yeah. I'll close it. We can kinda wrap up this topic with this, that, I've had people say things to me and, like, my coworkers before at events that they're like, these are really credited people, very creditable, and they think that we're very talented, but, like, they're always their last piece of advice, they always close out with this is, "You gotta know your stuff too, you just can't look it." And we've always
Yes.
got those comments, it's like, not here for that in the beginning. Thank you for thinking that I'm very talented to have this conversation, like, and telling
Yeah.
me that you think I'll go
Yeah.
far,
Yeah.
but you can't just look the part. I got that part, thank you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I will say that there'll be much tougher times in my career because right now I think it just feels this way that like because I'm a girl and I'm young and I've done a good enough job reporting on a topic here and there that I think people are like kind of impressed with what I'm bringing to the table.
Mhm.
Just because I'm a newer face, and I don't know, maybe they think I do a terrible job, but some of the feedback I've gotten, it feels very positive so far. Something I've learned the last year is as intoxicating as that can be in the very beginning to feel like, okay, I'm doing a good job. Like they thought so. You can get wrapped up in it pretty quickly. I wouldn't say this is how I am right now, but when you first put yourself out there, you're basically just waiting for feedback on it, even
Mhm.
if you thought you did well or not. I could have done a show that I prepared for so well and I executed it really well. And I'm like, hey, that was good. You did a great job. But then because it's on a topic that you're newer to, you're basically waiting for validation from someone else that's done it for a long time to tell you that it wasn't just you that thought it was great.
Yeah.
And so then when you start to get a few compliments or multiple things that you do get compliments and they're like, hey, this was a great take, Avery, or really well presented, or something along those lines, all of a sudden you feel like your work basically is defined on if other people in that space thought it was done well.
Mhm.
And so I've learned very quickly. I wouldn't say I ever sat on those compliments very much. It just was nice to have some of those compliments in the beginning where now well, my whole point of sharing this is like there's a flip side of these compliments. At the same time, you get so used to having them sometimes that you're like, when you don't, it's like, well, is something wrong?
Mm.
No, your level has just gone a little bit higher and people expect that from you. And
Sure.
also, I've learned, I think it took me like probably about a month into the season where I was getting so much positive feedback. And then after a game, I got some really negative feedback, maybe not necessarily because of me, but because of the result. And it really
Sure.
quickly snapped me back into a reality of is like, okay. So people think you do a good job when they win, and they think you
Yeah.
do a terrible job when they lose. So what does that say about the things you were saying before the
Sure.
beginning?
Sure.
So I've learned to take them with a grain of salt. The people that follow along a lot of the time, just also this is so weird to say. People recognize me or sometimes, or like they pay attention to my like. It's just like it's weird. It's the imposter thing, I guess, a little bit. But I forget that I'm in the light a lot more than I am. And so when people recognize me at times or they ask how a certain game went, I'm always like, how did you know that? Oh, right. Okay. Forgot
Yeah.
that it's like
It's
all
right.
over
All over
whatever.
media. Yeah.
Yeah, we've posted everything. But anyway, my whole point is like that doesn't define you and people's opinions and comments and stuff don't. And I've always known that, but it's interesting to be in a space that is so new. And then when you get feedback pretty quickly, you're kind of like, oh, okay, that was kind of nice. Like, thanks for appreciating my work. Like I put a lot of hard work into it. But once again, it goes back to that. Are they complimenting you because it was done well,
Yeah.
or what is the circumstance? So my whole flip side of that is the compliments can be nice, but also it's like they don't define you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so you have unfortunately you have to assume they're empty unless they come from people that I really
Yeah.
trust and are
Yeah.
credible and I really value and I know they value me. So just to wrap up that conversation, it's a double edged sword a little bit.
I want to talk briefly about what it's like to prepare for either a hockey game you're covering or football. Like what
Yeah.
all goes into it for you? Like what's your
Okay.
typical week look like as far as preparation?
Yeah, so a normal week in my life. So Mondays, as of recently, I get to take off or not off, but I'm home, which
Yeah.
is really nice, just because I've been traveling on the weekends, and I usually work more than one game on the weekends now, and so Tuesday is kind of the day that I really get all my stuff together, and we, as my team and I, reevaluate what content we had left over from the weekend, and we have press conferences from coaches from Nebraska that day, and so me and my team basically curate what the day is going to look like based on how the weekend went. And then also what kind of content is coming in from coaches exactly. And that's a big thing for me because when I hear straight from the coaches, that goes straight into my notebook half the time
Mhm.
because,
Mhm.
they're the one telling us exactly how it is, or at least we hope so. And so that's where I get a lot of my information every week is what the coaches are sharing. And I would say, thankfully, the Husker staff is really great at being pretty transparent. And these press conferences, at least Coach Rule, like he likes to at least share a good amount of what's really going on, and it's not too coach speaky, which is great. So I take a lot of that into note. Those press conferences are all not only for us to put up on social, but for me to really take note of. And then Wednesday is kind of a little bit of the same. And I mean, I have meetings mixed in with all of these as well. But Wednesday is kind of the next thing. Now we're kind of really gearing towards the next weekend. We're not really looking back on the last weekend anymore. What midweek games are happening? These are all things we've obviously know, but is there a volleyball game? Is there a basketball game now? What that kind of thing on a Wednesday? What kind of content do we have previously that we can use to preview the game tonight? Do we have any social clips? Do we have any press conference clips that we can use to highlight the game this evening? And then whatever else we need to start getting out to prepare for that weekend. So on Wednesdays or Tuesdays, I have a recap preview show. So what that looks like getting ready for that is, I mean, I was at the game. So just looking at my notes and what were the overarching themes that most people want to talk about or discuss from the loss or the win, and then previewing the next opponent. So what I usually like to do for the preview of the next opponent is I go into the other team's schedule. First of all, like sometimes the easiest observations are the simplest ones, since
Mhm.
I've learned to sometimes try to make it too complicated. Um, what is their record? What is their record on the road? What is their record at home? What is the theme that they've had in the last few games? I look at their stats. This is basic, but it's like how many rushing yards versus passing yards do they have, and what is their preferred method of offensive attack? And then who's leading that charge? Which
Mhm.
player is it? And then I go into their team and just looked at their links and their bios and which player is mentioned the most. Okay, why? What's being talked about with them? Just little things. And then sometimes it leads me down a rabbit hole of digging into a little bit further, but that's more or less for my own knowledge for the actual
Mhm.
weekend.
Mhm.
The actual preparation itself, I try to keep pretty basic. Just, hey, this weekend against Maryland, Talia Tagovailoa throws almost 3,000 yards. Our quarterback doesn't love to throw the ball. He's got less than 1,000. So clearly their plan of attack is in the air, and
Yeah.
he's the best passer in the conference apparently right now. So
Yeah.
what challenge does that present Nebraska's defense? Just those kind of things. And then tying it back together to the loss they had in Michigan State. So just curating themes in my head so then I can put a 4, 5, 6 question layout together that can just give me bullet points for when I recap with the co-host. I just have an idea, but I've learned this year to really just trust what I've already seen. Don't plan too much. Have your
Yeah.
stuff ready, but
Yeah.
then trust your knowledge because I've been at the games. I've seen. So the thing that I've learned a lot or seen within myself is from the first preview recap show, I basically just spit questions at a person. And now I'm able to actually take their responses and add some feedback before I turn the question back around. So that's been a pretty comforting benchmark for me because I was
Mhm.
worried at the beginning of the year. I'm like, am I going to get better at this as the year goes on? Because I want to have like my own input. And so
Yeah.
naturally, because I've been at the games, it's been great to have my own opinions or even
Yeah.
just like my own facts. Because sometimes that's the best stuff is having your own observations. You don't have to find it off a website sometimes. So that's what a Wednesday looks like. And then this week I was at basketball games, doubleheader at night. So there's no normal work hours in sports, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, I have no meetings. Basically, it's a big content day. So we have head coach Roll Presser. He's talking strictly about Maryland, basically. And then I had a hockey presser yesterday. So I'm going to clip those clips up and get them ready to post for their series against Long Island tomorrow. And then we just have stuff left over. Like we have just staff profiles that we like to share once a week. We have pictures from last night's game at volleyball and Omaha's basketball. So all this stuff starts to flood into me from people that were out and about at the night before,
Mhm.
or if that's me, and then basically the puzzle piece to figure out where it makes sense on which accounts. And then Friday is a prep day for me. Basically, in the morning, I start to review hockey. So looking back on the press conference that I heard from the player and coach, just what their focus is, Long Island's stats. And then I always have a pregame interview about 3 hours before the game on Friday night. So I usually put about 3 questions together with a player. And then hockey happens on Friday. And then Saturday, we've got an 11 a.m. football game. So I'll be there. And I get there for an 11 a.m. game. I'll probably be there around like 8 because the team gets
Mhm.
there around 8:30. Yeah,
Mhm.
get the team arrival. That's it. I mean, working Husker football is a lot of content. That's basically what it is. And so we'll have that game. I'll give my post game thoughts, and then I will drive to Omaha because hockey has a game at 7 o'clock, and then we'll do a hockey game all over again. So, and then Sunday, depending on if there's a game or not, basketball or something. Sometimes I have that, but then Sunday's usually a travel day or I'm off. But I
Yeah.
basically try to fit in preparation actively. The things that I'm doing, how can I kill two birds with one stone? How can I listen to a press conference and get ready to post content, but also take into consideration what they're saying?
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of it's just like active note taking, like throughout the year. So it helps that I'm actually at these events now. And so a lot of them are from my own observation. Yeah. And then we do it all over again the next week.
So then on top of all this, then you are on a radio show that you have through her dad. media in Her Dat Sports. You're doing a segment on Wednesdays from 9 to 10. You're on the show. Tell us a bit about that, how has it been fun? What do you think about it?
Mhm.
Do you like it? It's been
Yeah.
different. I've watched you
Mhm.
the content's changed a little bit since you've been on there, but tell me about
Yeah.
that experience too.
Yeah. So when I first got thrown into it, I was really nervous because it's 3 hours of just talking the entire time and a lot of Husker football to talk about.
Yeah. Like, what else can we talk
And
about? Yeah.
I really would say that ever since getting thrown into the radio show, it really did catapult my confidence for my own Husker thoughts, I guess you could say, because the first 45 minutes is really just previewing the previous week or what we heard from the coaches, and it's basically full on your thoughts. Where
Mhm.
before, I felt like with my preview or recap shows or interviews, like I had support where I was relying on the expert, where now it's kind of like, all right, like you're the expert here now. And so I think I was really nervous for what people were going to think of my first 45 minutes of thoughts. And I should have leaned on this a lot harder, but I always had heard this before and I'd gotten this advice in college that you are the expert because you were there. Like you did the research. You have to remember that a lot of times people aren't doing as much work as you are doing. Like they can have their thoughts and their opinions, but they're not all the time, but they're a little bit more uneducated than you, and they're not getting the access that you are getting access to,
Mhm.
and they're not reading all the things that you're reading or listening to. So embrace the fact that you are the expert in a situation because you are.
Yeah.
Like you are doing the work. So after I said, I had that first radio show and gotten some positive feedback just from my coworkers and stuff. I was like, okay, my thoughts are valid. I always just think I sometimes discredit myself because I'm like, I've never played the sport as much as I
Sure.
wish I could have. It's hard because, I this is a different tangent, but I think that's one reason why girls struggle sometimes in the space of sports is because we didn't have at my age, didn't have the access to play the sports that all the
Yeah.
guys got to play at a young age. You were kind of limited to the soccer, volleyball, softball, swim, dance thing. Where now girls can play flag football and they have experience. I mean, I've grown up around baseball, and so I know that one, but football is a different world to me. And I've grown up in that football space, being a huge fan. But I'm always kind of just curious, like, why would anyone want to listen to me? Because I don't know what it's like. I don't know the first thing. I don't know what it's like to put a helmet on and go hit someone. They probably think I sound like a blabbing idiot. So I think that's what freaked me out a little bit about the radio show. And then I did it a few times, and it just was fun to talk to different people. And we have guests on from all over, and it's nice to hear different perspectives and just different topics and stuff. And it's just a lot of preparation too. Like it's 3 hours show, and you have to know the direction in which you wanna go, and you gotta be prepared for the guests that you have on, and so, when you do that every day, like, major kudos to those people that do it because it's a lot of
Yeah.
prep, but
Yeah.
I was only doing it every other week, but now I do it from 9 to 10, and it's been great because the first 30 minutes or so, we chit-chat Husker football, and then we play a game, and so,
Yeah.
it's been really fun to, like, bring personality to the radio too, and, we even
Yeah.
got a really fun team, and so, I think that's one big thing we try to embrace lately too on the radio is, like, you can talk about Husker football 24/7. Everyone's doing it, but we're gonna rehash the same topic we talked about 2 days ago. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's been no game since the last time we talked, right? So just making it more personable and bringing personality and character to it. And so the three of us on the show from the last 30 minutes, I know we have a really great time. And so that's definitely helped my presence, I think, on
Yeah,
there as
for
well,
sure.
just being authentically myself. And I actually don't really think I struggle with that usually. I feel like what you get with me behind closed doors as a friend is kind of what you're going to get when I'm in front of a camera, which I can't probably tell you that. That's what it was like in the beginning. I was pretty fabricated and trying to just sound good.
Yeah.
Like, did the words come out of my mouth correctly? Where now I feel like you can bring some more
Yeah.
personality, which has been kind of fun. So yeah, that's been it was a really big challenge for me that first week. And then after I did it once, I was like, you can do this. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's just the
Yeah.
daunting idea of starting.
Yeah. And it's
And
live and
so,
people you can't this isn't a stop and let's
mhm,
edit that out. It's
mhm,
out there.
mhm.
Yeah. It's been fun. I forwarded it to grandma, so she listens every
Mhm.
Wednesday as
Yeah,
well.
she
So
does.
she always
Yeah.
sends me a text after you're done.
Yeah, sure.
Funny.
I will say, like, I don't know if we wanna go down this road necessarily, but I think all of the
Yeah.
opportunities
Yeah.
that have come across my path in the last year, I have to credit to the trials and tribulations, you could say, I've gone through that haven't been work related, that when
Mhm.
I sit back and look back on the past year, I'm very thankful for them because of the person that it's funny, like, last, oh Hold on, hold on. Shit fell apart. Hold on.
least your headphones didn't give you a concussion like mine did.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. I had to break up a serious topic there.
What the edit
Um,
button's for. You're good.
no, give it in. A year ago, I think I thought that I had my life in a good spot, which
Mhm.
is just comical to me to look back on. And like we're having this conversation right now, and it's just funny that all the things that I've gone through, or the things I go through work related now that I don't think I would have been strong enough to endure a year
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
And to think that I went through college and I was in a really great headspace and just like very confident, I think, because I was living on my own and you're away from home for the first time. And when you figure that out and you have that alone time, you become, I just think, a much stronger individual and you learn who you are. And I thought I knew, thought I knew a lot about that. And then I kind of had a curveball thrown my way and it really challenged my self identity.
Mhm.
And so just as we're having this conversation, it's dawning on me again, just like how many things I'm getting to experience and do because of those outside challenges that have really pushed me
Yeah.
to be a stronger person.
Well, I was gonna ask about the post-college transitions. I don't think we really
Mhm.
got into it a ton in the last conversation because we've talked a lot further about it, especially as a student athlete, the schedule and everything's da 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 for you, and all of a sudden you're now thrown into a workspace and your life's completely different. I mean, sure, it's around sports still, but there's no schedule to adhere to besides your work schedule, whatever that is. But do you want to talk about how that's been? I mean, it's been
Mhm.
a year and a half now, but well, it's been 2 years, a year and a half.
No, it's a year and a half. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
a year and a
2 years.
half.
Yeah.
Been a year and a half since you were
Yeah.
done with soccer. Yeah, fill us in about how that's been, and
Mhm.
you've expressed some things that were challenges at first for you
Mhm.
in that situation. Let us know about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the semester after soccer ended was fine. It's like the first time in your life that you have a little bit of freedom and you obviously miss it, but it was just nice to not have something controlling you.
Mhm.
And then when summer comes around, you realize that your life has been benchmarked for you. The fall time is for school and it's for soccer. And that is the start of something new. And then when the start of something new doesn't happen in the fall, I think my life was like, what's new? What comes
Yeah.
now? And there's nothing. I understand why people schedule vacations. I understand why people schedule friend gatherings or whatever it may be because you have to break it up because your entire life it's been sectioned off for you. And so this
Yeah.
was my first taste of that. And I wasn't living with my friends anymore. And that was fine for a while because I knew we would see each other again and those kind of things. But you're just realizing that nothing is going to do it for you anymore. And not that you realize that that's how life was before. I never knew that school and soccer was doing a job for me. It just
Mm.
was what I was always a part of. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now it's like, oh, I have to put in all of this effort
Yeah.
just to see someone I used to see every single day. And so now you go to the rut of routine of going to work and stuff. And I love my job. I have a really great job that doesn't
Yeah.
force me to stare at a wall every day. But at the end of the day, I'd come home living by myself and I was like, I'm searching for something more now. And so I
Yeah.
think between that and when we were on this podcast last, I was in a relationship that I thought was really great.
Yeah.
And we'll just we'll put it at that. Uh,
Ended up not, which was about what it was a year, almost a year ago.
it was almost yeah.
Oh, it may be like this weekend or last
Yeah,
weekend.
sure. No, it is November 14th. Well,
Okay. Oh, good Lord God. Yeah, that was the
well,
we'll just say
I
that
don't
was a
know.
rough
So
weekend.
we'll celebrate accordingly.
Yes,
If you
rough weekend, but yes.
but anyway,
Yeah.
my point is that was also mixed in as well. So, I
Yes.
had a relationship that I thought was gonna be great, and then turns out it wasn't serving me at all, and then not around my friends. I was, now entering into the job routine, and so there's a lot of things that all of a sudden I was like, I have a first job. I live in an apartment by myself. I'm paying my own bills. These are all the things that society tells me I am doing a great job. Like I am checking every box of an out of college successful person and I not feeling fulfilled at
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And like obviously my job wasn't really fulfilling my passion and my need at the time either. So there was that a little bit.
At the very beginning, you're just in the social media, the restaurant for the most
Yeah.
part. It wasn't
Yeah.
sports related except for what you're
No.
doing for UNO, and that wasn't
Yeah.
really happening a ton. It was a little bit, but
Yeah.
not
And
much. But
yeah. And so I think my reason I'm bringing this up is because I'd gone through a breakup before in high school, and like that propelled me into having, I think, a great 4 years of being an individual and figuring out my identity. But it's crazy how this second one, I think I needed, which is weird. I needed it again to prove that one, um, a reminder of my worth and my value,
Yeah.
because it's crazy that we had this conversation a year ago and talking about this kind of stuff, just where I've gone in life and all these things. I remember I had just like a really tough weekend. So I came home and I was just kind of going through it. I was just feeling off. And you were like reminding me of all the things that I am and like
Yeah.
the things that people tell you that I am, just as your friends or our neighbors. And I couldn't stop crying. I was like uncontrollably crying. And you were like, why are you crying? And I was like, because I don't feel any of that right now. Like I do not
Mhm.
feel that at all. And I couldn't at the moment pinpoint why. I was like, people see these things in me and I do not feel it at all. And it was the first time in a very long time that I didn't feel, I think, very confident, or I didn't feel just individually strong. I just felt like I was relying on whether an opportunity went well for me or the validation of this person in my relationship, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
I was allowing one situation in my life to control all of them.
Yes.
And I think I had a hard time with that because I hadn't struggled with that in a very long time.
Yeah.
Like my entirety of the 4 years of college, even if something was going off or just soccer was going hard or something was giving
Yeah.
me a struggle, I knew that I could pull myself out of it, or I knew what I could rely on, or I knew what I could lean on to get myself through it, whether it be my friends or just like some good alone time, doing what I like to do. And because my friends weren't there, and I just was not feeling entirely myself, I felt a little bit lost. I remember just like
Yeah.
crying, you telling me these things. And
Mhm.
so we'll fast forward to me getting out of this relationship. I thought it was like great, end of the world, out of college. Now I'm truly by myself. Fantastic, living on my own. And it's just funny how when
Yeah.
it's like the saying goes, like when you feel like your world's falling apart, everything's actually just falling back into place. But I felt like everything had been reshifted to fit into this puzzle purposely, and I'm not going to say perfectly, but almost perfect, because I hadn't realized how much of a sense of loss of identity I had lost by being in this relationship. And it was a reminder that for the next person or the career that I'm in, this is what you love to do. This is a part of who you are. And then if someone is non intentionally, intentionally taking that away from you, it's never going to serve you, because I wasn't going to fulfill myself ever, ever, ever. And so now that I've gotten to a place where I think it was like April, May, like the end of March was a pretty tough time. Like from November to March, I was going through it, but it was all like a self growth thing. Like once again, I wasn't living on my own away from home. I was living on my own after college. And so now April, May comes around and I got to go to the NFL draft, and there was like a few more things I feel like I got to do mixed in there. Maybe it was the red white game. There's just things all of a sudden where I was getting to work really again in a space that I'd be in front of a camera or I'd be doing something or I'd be traveling and I was like, whoa, like I feel strong. I feel good. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Like I'm not trying to prove anything. I am in a good spot. And I think it reminded me in that moment that my job is not who I am, but I feel like I serve a bigger purpose when I'm getting to step into that. I get to connect with people. I get to just bring personality to conversations, the people I meet. I love meeting new people, and this job allows me to meet a ton of people. So it was forcing myself to look at the other opportunities that come within my job that aren't just working in sports that I like. I like to travel and I like to meet new people. I love to figure out where people are from. I love to hear people's stories. Like all of that kind of stuff. And it just filled this need within me again where I was like, this is what you love. And if someone can't support that and you're not going to have this in your life, like, peace out. It ain't gonna work. So then I look at it now, and the minute I shifted my focus from being sorry for myself or feeling like I was alone or why this situation I thought was so great didn't work out, I had the best summer of my entire life. Like I truly did. The experiences that I had, the World Series, and I
Oh,
moved
yeah.
into an apartment with one of my great friends now, and we live in a beautiful apartment, a great space, and just all of these things just started to stack on top of each other because I felt like I was focused on the right things. And I just think it's interesting that no one really talks about the post college life without talking about it being this financial struggle or like having to go to work. It's like, no, I have all of those things checked off right now and I still was unhappy. Like, why does no one talk about this? And it's just you coming home after a day of work and yeah, I went to the gym. I already did that. Like, I made myself a great meal. I'm doing the things that are supposed to be like whatever. And it's like this lack of sense of community or this trying to even date after college, all these conversations that no one ever really talks
Yeah.
about. And
Because you were before, everything was right
yeah,
at your disposal. You had friends around
yeah.
the corner living with you. People were constantly around you, other athletes,
Mhm.
whatever. And so now all of a sudden you have to make the effort
Yeah.
to meet the
Mhm.
people. And
Right,
it's hard.
and yeah, and the reason why I bring this up is, like, when I say curveball, I meant feeling a little bit of a loss of friends. I have my friends don't lie. I just meant,
Yeah.
like, my closest teammates.
Yes. Yes.
By the way, I didn't have 3 hours every single day where I was with 20 plus girls, being active in the middle of the day, having the time of my life, right? So you take 2 hours of activity and your sport out of your life, like, try that one too.
Yeah, that's
But then
right.
it's like and then I had a, a relationship situation. So when I said curveball, I just meant all of those things all at
Yeah.
once. I'm not like an anti-change person, but it was a lot all at once. And I felt like no one ever talks about it. I'm paying my own bills and I have my own apartment and I have a job. Could- By the book, you're living the life, girl. And I
Yeah.
was like, but I'm not.
Not feeling
And
it. Yeah.
so for me, I had to step out of this rut and I've learned so much within the last 6 months, 7 months, what it was, 6 months. Yeah. And my job is to credit to that. But I think I always know I'm in a pretty good position within myself personally
Hmm.
when opportunities from my job start to pop into place. And I
Hmm.
tell young people this too when they want to get into this space. I said, if you say yes and you focus on the right things and you put yourself in good positions, things will cross your path. Like they
Yeah.
will. Like you will have to go searching for a little bit, but things will cross your path. You will meet the right people. And the reason why I say that too is because of the post college me, I was pretty complacent without knowing it. And I was also with a person that I thought was supportive, but really it wasn't really about us together, right?
Yeah.
Nothing was coming across my path. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like I was nothing new. Like my weeks to weeks were pretty blah. It's just so incredible to me to look back on my last year and think that we had this podcast conversation and I was like, yeah, like things are good. Like I have things are going the great direction. And it's like you had no idea. Like you had
Yeah.
no idea. And
Yeah.
so now I just feel like because of things I've had to go through personally, it's also led to career success. And I know you will be like, well, I saw that. I know. But it's just hard because when you don't see it personally, it's hard to
Oh,
like
yes. I know.
and so I think if this is a message to anyone listening or younger, like you do have to focus on what your own dreams and goals are too.
Yeah.
And there's a healthy balance to doing it. And it can't be all about the one other person. It can't be all about you as well. And I think I learned that. I was like, well, I'll find my thing. I got to make sure this person's supportive or I do X, Y, and Z. But you also have to fill your own cup and to put your needs first too. And I
Yeah.
think females in relationships or females individually, sometimes we serve others a ton and that's not a bad thing. I'm like, it's not like, we're giving individuals, but I think sometimes society also tells us that we have to be the giver all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's also okay to focus on your own dreams and goals. I mean, if there's been anything that me and Sydney or my friend group has really embraced in this age of life that we're in right now, and I think it's not a 20s thing. It can be a 40s thing. It can be a
Sure.
50s thing that like your grinding era doesn't have to be right out of college or whatever. Like you can still chase this dream whenever you want to chase it. And I think when we say chasing a dream, like when you say that out of college or whatever it may be, it seems so daunting and scary, but it's just taking the next step forward
Yeah.
truly, like every single day. And so when I focused on that, like it broadened my eyesight to being like, look at all the things you've done in the last week. Look at all the things you've done in the last 2 weeks. Okay, now look at the things. Would you have done any of that in the mindset that you were in 4 months ago? And like having a moment to just be full of gratitude. Usually don't like plan these things out. They just kind of come your way if you put
Mhm.
yourself in the right position. So the curveball that I was thrown after, I don't think is truly that much of a curveball because I think a lot of people go through it. And
Sure.
just to me, I was like, whoa, knocked me on my ass pretty quick.
Yeah.
So when you talk about all the success and stuff right now, like it's really early, but I think it doesn't um not dawn on me often of just what a better head place I'm in, what a better space I'm in. Um The
And
personal stuff, it has to start with here, obviously, is what I'm trying to
yeah,
get at.
exactly. Exactly. And, and not to go hash this whole thing up, but as a parent, and you see your child not being 100% themselves or living up to what that they've been doing in the past or that they're capable of, it's hard. And you don't want to sit and tell, your child what to do. You have to let them go through it and figure it out. And if they come to you for guidance, great. But it's hard to watch. And I knew at that time you were struggling, but you didn't know it. And I look back at this whole thing, and as much as I don't want you to go through pain ever in your life, that's not obviously reality. That's not how life works. We're supposed to go through stuff to help us grow. I would allow that to happen over and over again, knowing this is what was going to come out on the other side of this, because I do believe that you were in that relationship,
Yeah.
honest to God,
Mhm.
to get you this job because you went back up to Omaha because of this relationship, truly. And we're here. And you ended up finding this job because of, you interviewed for it. We talked about this the last episode. And then that relationship falls apart. And then your career takes off.
Yeah.
And you're in a place now where if you wouldn't have said yes to this, what else would you have been doing someplace else? If would you have stayed in Kansas City, try to get a job someplace else? This position that you're in right now is honest to God, the perfect starting job for you. And it's launched you into so many avenues of things.
Mhm.
If it wasn't for that relationship, you wouldn't be here, honestly. So I have to
Yeah.
look at maybe there's a reason why that happened at that time.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, don't wish my child to ever suffer. But what
Oh,
growth you've had since then and this life lesson that you've had was so
yeah.
necessary and so important that I can
I
see it.
yeah, I joked with my friends, like, I probably should write a thank you letter.
Thanks for being an asshole. Oh, wait. Helped me out a
No,
lot. Oh,
yeah, I probably
yeah.
should
And
write a thank you letter,
it's crazy to
but
think
yeah,
I feel like when I say it's been a year ago, it also feels like that's not a long time, but at the same time, it feels like a long time ago. Like that
it's
felt like
I
eons
it
ago.
does. It
Like
does.
so much has
No,
happened since then, but
and I kind of the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because, like, the way you started the podcast with, like, just some of the things that I go through within my job or just, having confidence, on the radio show or just having confidence in my own opinions and thoughts and knowing that people's comments don't define you or people's comments can be not, like the whole thing.
yeah,
When you're in a public eye, I just know that if I was in this position a year ago, I wouldn't probably been strong enough to
yeah,
understand all of it or grasp all of it and understand how to compartmentalize it. I appreciate this, but I don't need it. I'm good where I'm
yeah,
at.
yeah, yeah.
Or thank you for this. That it's very meaningful to me. Or just the lot of the eyeballs on me kind of thing. I just don't know if I would have been comfortable with any of that. And like I said, I think it's a credit to a lot of the personal stuff. Maybe not even like relationship, yes, but outside the relationship stuff. Just,
Yeah.
being truly, truly on my own in my own space, my own time. Like I preached this to like almost everyone that I know at some point in college that like you have to spend time on your own and you have to enjoy your presence because you have to understand what makes you tick and what makes you go. But I think this was like my reminder. Like you don't just have to do it when you break up with a relationship. Yes. And it's also been a reminder for whatever comes my way next,
Yeah.
whether relationship wise and whatever. Like it's redefined what I want, which is
Mhm.
funny. And when I thought I had that figured out, and also just like how to balance better because I've balanced a relationship being an athlete and I've also balanced a relationship not really having it and like having some downtime, but
Mhm.
now how to be my own individual while also sharing that with someone else.
Yep.
My career in the last few months has really opened my eyes to that as well.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's just really funny to look back on.
Yeah.
We keep referencing a year ago, and it's just making me laugh a
I
little
know.
bit. But I like have to reflect on the personal stuff that's led to I think the career success. I know there's going to be like some hard times. Like there has been some tough times mixed in
Yeah.
there, obviously that we haven't highlighted career wise. It's not really always sunshine and rainbows. Like
Sure. Sure.
so, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. But we're highlighting obviously the good stuff. But opportunities that have crossed my path, like I'm very thankful for, just because of the tough stuff. That
Yeah.
I think that what makes it a little bit more rewarding too.
Absolutely.
is knowing that, 4 months before that, I kind of was at a loss. And now it's like, you put in some work, you put in work when it was really freaking tough for you to even want to go to work. And now you're okay. It's good. Like,
Yeah.
look what's happened because fought through some tough crap.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things because I look back, I went from high school, had my best friend, went to college, got in a sorority, had best friends,
Mhm.
met your dad, in relationship, boom, went to a job, work friends. And I didn't have that time on my own to almost create a foundation of who I was. And that's why I
Mhm.
think now it's happening for me because my time as a mom is being less demanded of. So I'm able to do a little more exploration and figure out what I love and dive into some things. I wish I would have had this right after college because I would have, I think, done a lot of things differently. I may have chosen different things out of college, had more confidence, and that's the thing I love about what you're doing right now and what you've been through is your confidence has grown, and that in turn then helps you know, okay, this is what I deserve. This is what I want to do. And whether or not a relationship comes sooner or later, you at least have now this foundation and this structure that you know that you love and that you need to feel what you need to feel in your life.
Mhm.
And you said it, highly recommend anybody coming out of college to have that time alone to figure yourself out because there's so much noise coming at us all the time. You grow up, you have your parents telling you what to do, coaches,
Yeah.
teachers, whatever. And to be on your own, to have that quiet time, that quiet space, it does. It helps you figure out who you truly are as you go through hard things, as you navigate new spaces, new chapters in your life, and it's just you. That's actually really helpful. Even though at the time it feels really scary and freaky and,
Mhm.
like, is this the right thing? I think it's so important
Yeah.
to listen to your own voice. And I think you've had
Mhm.
a good chance to do that with this whole situation. So I'm so glad that actually happened, honestly, because it's allowed
Yeah.
you to to become the person I think that you were supposed to be. And you already
Yeah.
were a version of this, it just you took a step back, I think, a little bit, and I think you were a shell of your person at that time, and now to come back fully into who you are.
Yeah. It's also, like, reframed my mind in a lot of ways, which is really funny. I don't even realize that I do this sometimes, but, like, when things come and go in my life now, before I know that I would, like, literally, like, the word's not latch on there we go, latch on for dear
Yes.
life and,
Yeah.
like, try to control it.
Yeah.
I always would end up getting hurt, not even just relationship situation, like relationship, just things out of my control situations,
Yeah.
because I wanted to
Yeah.
control the environment as a defense
Yeah.
mechanism.
Yeah.
And now I've just learned to, because I always know, like, whenever there's a hard, this is so cliche, but whenever there's literally a hardship in my life ever, I've got to the point where I've already asked myself, I'm gonna learn something from this. What
Mhm.
is it? I'll find it out in a few months. Like, I know.
Yeah.
Like, just get through it, you'll figure out the lesson. Be like,
Yep.
and so I've learned that every single time that I've latched on harder to try to protect myself or to control something, I end up getting hurt more,
Yeah.
whatever the circumstances, whether it's a friend situation or a relationship situation or just life something.
Yep.
Like, and I've just let things come and go. If
Yeah.
someone's going to enter into your life, let it be what it is for the moment. If they're going to exit, then you have to entirely believe that it was not
Yep.
for you, because every single time that a person exits, something else enters. It was like
Right.
you were clogging the space, and it's not to say like in a mean way, but if it's their choice to go, then it's their choice to go. If an opportunity comes and it doesn't sit correctly
Yeah.
and it goes, I've truly embraced the what is meant for you will never pass you
Yeah.
mentality, truly. And God, I'm giving this person so much credit. I really credit this freaking situation.
Yeah.
Um, just because I've never felt more mentally free than I think I've felt lately, just because I'm so not worried about stuff that doesn't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard lesson to get to. Like, it's a
Yeah.
really hard thing to get to because you want to control things, you want to keep things in your life all the time. And just because society either tells you to, or it's good for you, or whatever it may
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
it's just something that, like you said, like you're learning now. But I always reflect on that because we just know, I feel like we have more access to knowing things more
Yeah.
now. I sometimes feel for your guys' generation that it was like after college, it was like, you know, this, and there's nothing else in between
That's
because
right.
you just didn't know. Like, you thought
Yeah.
everyone was doing that. There wasn't really a worldly view. And I think to have just I don't know, like the opportunity to do it now in my 20s to learn shit that people kind of wish they could still, which they still can, by the way.
Yes,
Like
again, yeah. Yeah.
there's no age or label on that, and I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just been nice to like also like I think go through it. I told my friends, like we've talked about this too. It's just crazy when you go through something like collegey time, and then
Yeah.
you gotta go through something like right after college, and you think you were, chilling. It's like, no, you need to learn another one. Hold
Yeah.
on. And because good things are happening right now, I'm sure I have something coming.
There's something about
But
though
you know,
that there's something about though about like you said earlier about how putting yourself in a good headspace and you're putting yourself in front of opportunities, good things are going to keep coming your way. So I think there's also a certain flip side of that too is you keep showing up for yourself, doing the work, saying yes to things, just like we talked about the Sydney, saying yes to things.
we love that one. Yep.
Yeah. And look what happens. And so
Yep.
saying yes to something when initially it was a job about posting freaking hamburger pictures. Like what in the world? But now and you knew they were gonna have a sports division, but at
Yeah.
the same time you didn't
Yeah.
really know what it was capable of. I don't think they really understood
No, none of us knew
where
it was
this
going to
went.
turn into what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So look where you're at and the opportunities
Yeah.
you're gonna get. And speaking of that, the next opportunity, you're gonna have volleyball, professional volleyball in
Yeah. Pro
Omaha too.
volleyball. Yeah.
That's super freaking cool. You mean
They
Kip
just
used to
announced Kansas City's has a team, by the way, yesterday.
shut up. They
Yeah.
did?
I,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
And
yesterday.
that's awesome.
Yep.
All right, Dad, I'm gonna have to get season tickets for that because Kip used to play volleyball in college,
Okay.
and so
Yep.
it's something that we've always loved watching. I mean, Nebraska
Okay.
volleyball is insane, and
Okay.
that's gonna be a cool thing to be involved in.
Okay.
So those things are coming your way, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
again
So
something
true.
you who knew that was going to be a
Yeah.
thing, and now that's on
Yeah.
the cusp. And I got to share. I'll share a picture on this video. Your dad and I met Carrie Walsh
Oh yeah.
back in California. I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. And then now she'll be at most of the games. We've seen her from afar. She was at the Husker volleyball day, and then she was also at a lot of volleyball games. She was at the national championship. We were in Kansas City, so I'm really excited for you to meet these people. And Dad and I are just over here like, oh my gosh, child's 24 years old.
I
What the
sometimes
hell?
I I think sometimes too I get caught up in like the routine of things and just doing what I do that I sometimes forget to like share.
Yeah,
Like like I was on a flight the other day like to Michigan State, and you were like texting me something. I was like, oh, hold on, like I'm landing in Detroit. Like 1 second. I was like, oh, I don't really know if I told Mom I was going to Detroit today.
yeah. No, this is
But
just a normal day.
it comes so fast. It does. I
I
know.
know, I know, I know.
You
Oh,
know,
that's
I
been
feel like,
awesome.
oh shoot.
So speaking of the travel, I listened to the radio show yesterday and talk about how the travel, and they were giving you shit about you're like, what's your favorite place you've traveled to far? And you're like,
Yeah,
Boulder.
Colorado. Sorry.
And that's a huge no-no when you're a Nebraska fan. You don't love Colorado, anything
I
about
said
it.
I
But
liked Boulder,
I know
not
exactly. And
Colorado.
they took it and ran with it, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm guessing that travel piece, like you said, you love to travel. That's one of
Yeah, cool.
the best things so far.
Yeah, it's like kind of crazy because I used to, well, I still do. I listen to Aaron and Chris's podcast, Aaron Andrews and Chris Thompson, and they
I'll
always
calm
talk
down.
about, oh, calm down. Yeah. They always talk about like their travel experiences, like just how they're so crazy. And I'm obviously not on that level at all.
Yeah.
But they just talk about how like, you get to the game and then blah blah blah. Game happens and then it's like rushing to your Uber or your for them it's like I think they're private, whatever. But they're still on commercial flights and stuff sometimes and like what it's like to change in the bathroom and all these things. And like literally I'm experiencing that now where
Mm-hmm.
we leave the game, we sprint to the Uber, having Uber troubles. People don't know where to even go after the game. Like the Uber's not going to pick you up. So now you're sprinting, now you're sweating and you're changing in the bathroom. And then like you hop from flight to flight just to get home. Like it's just so funny that I listened to other things like a year ago and I was like,
Yeah.
God, that's so funny. Like how crazy. And now I'm like, I mean, it's fun to travel. Like it's great, but it's like it's a quick 32 hours.
Yeah,
Like
it's not like
you're
you're
there and done.
chilling, hanging out.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely cool to like break it up. So the travel piece has been really cool for
Yeah.
sure. And it's an added bonus to the whole Husker coverage and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to hopefully continue to do that and be able to go see places. It's definitely
Yeah.
high up on the list of interest. So
To go back for a quick second, when you were going through a tough time, was there anything
Yeah.
you were reading or watching that was helping you a lot or doing that helped you also in case someone else needs some little help?
yeah. I wish I was better during this. I I was real like, I think I talked about my junior year, I had a really great, routine that like, I wasn't even going through anything tough. I just really wanted to have a good routine to help me with my headspace in soccer, and so ever since then, I think I've tried to get back to that. I just am not as committed to it because I don't sounds weird, but, like, I don't need it as much. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
trying to find something that serves me right now that I can look forward to every day in a routine. But when I was going through the hard time, I did get some books that I was reading, every once in a while. I'd do one in the morning and one at night, just a chapter, and they both were kind of self-helpy. One is called, I think, like, Surviving the Storm, and then there's another one that I can't remember exactly what it was. Yeah, I'll have to look it up,
That's right.
but, I think sometimes it's just nice to have the thoughts that you're having be explained to you as to why, and
Mhm.
not thinking that the thoughts that you're having are irrational. I think that was really comforting, and honestly, I kinda just embraced which this was something I learned in my junior year. Well, I have it right here, actually. This guy's been
Yeah,
great.
I know, I love that thing.
Be because it's so freaking simple. But something that I knew that it did for me is that I'm actually living out much better now. But it allowed me to focus on things that weren't hugely important in every single day.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I could be happy about a very small thing every day and it can still make me happy. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a huge gesture from someone or whatever it may be. So during this time when I was by myself, like truly, truly on my own, um, I would look forward to the fact that I was gonna have quiet time at the end of the day to watch an episode of a show that was coming out. And I already complained about this, I know, but at the end of the day, I'd come home and I was like, "Meh, whatever." But there was times where I would look forward to like, okay, on Thursdays, a new episode of 1883 comes out. And like
Yeah,
that's my thing right now. Like I love this show, and it's gonna make me happy. Or I would wake up actually early during this time, and I had just moved into a new apartment, and I would just kind of go ham on a little area of something in my apartment. I would like reorganize something, or I would get rid of clothes, like just something that was making me productive, and it woke me up early because I enjoyed the stillness of the morning before my workday.
yeah,
Um, and I didn't last very long. It was like 2 weeks, and then after that, I was like, okay, it doesn't really serve me right now. It's not really making me overly happy. And in that moment at that time, I had to focus on things and habits that were gonna serve me and make me happy. And if
yeah,
at that time it was like, "Okay, you know what? It's not really doing it for me anymore, like, let's do something different." I also was trying to work as many games as possible, and I know someone's probably listening to this like, "Okay, this is not good coping. You are just making yourself busy." But it was like I was by myself a lot, but
mhm.
I still had to wrestle with my own thoughts. And
Yeah,
so I would go to as many basketball games because they were middle of the week. Middle of the week was the hardest thing for me because I'm not around people. So going to many like basketball games middle of the week and being around people, and I learned how many people I had in my core that supported me, and it made me realize how many people that I have because of my school that are administrative staff that appreciate me. And I was
mhm.
like, you know what? Just because they're not your partner doesn't mean that you can't value their relationships that you
Sure,
have with them. And I think
sure.
sometimes we get so wrapped up in that when you're going through a tough time with someone or a breakup that everyone else's support doesn't really mount up to that one person.
Mm,
So I think it allowed me to reevaluate people that I had in my life, whether they're close friends or just acquaintances, and allow me to appreciate what they bring to my life. The other thing is I had great friends. I knew I had great friends, but this really showed me who my tight circle of people were. It's really easy to be a great friend when things are going great for you and your friend. But the way that my 6, 7 friends showed up for me during this time was incredible.
mhm.
And I actually really gained probably a best friend throughout it. And now I live with her. Sorry, this is a lot of things, but reading, finding small things that make you happy.
Yep.
My whole point is like this allowed me to focus on the small things that make me happy.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
actually had a journal at the end of every single day, and it was called my happy journal. And I would bullet points things within that day that made me even just this much
Yeah,
happy.
yeah, yeah.
And it was simple things like it was sunny today. The
Yeah,
coffee I got was good. Uh, Someone I met at the store had a great conversation with me. Little things like I did something for someone today. We had a really great meeting, or I made a good meal, or there's a KU basketball game on tonight. I'm not kidding you. Like there's small things that make you happy.
yeah,
They don't have to be huge gestures. And once you focus on all the good gets better.
yep.
And so went to a church service, and it was talking about how in our day and age we are so focused on autonomy, like trying to be
Yep.
independent so much. And
Yep.
I know I've preached that a lot of this, but it's okay to balance in community. And he said that if you're a churchy person or not, you can take this however you want. It can be, just spiritual. It can be if you believe in, the power of something. He just said a lot of times that, we look to a higher power for healing, but healing is often within a community. And
Mm,
so it's hard to actually heal when you're on your own. And it sounds so dumbed down. Like, duh. Yeah, people bring you comfort. I get it. But the minute that I would step outside my comfort zone and I would go to Lydia's for a midweek dinner or something, I was always nervous. I don't even have I've told her this, but like while I was going through this tough time to go over there, because after a while I was like, it's so hard to talk about these things all the time. And this is not on her. I'm saying she's generally going to ask me, like, how are you doing?
mhm.
Naturally, the last thing in your life, because you're going through something tough, you're going to refer back to when things may have been good. And then all of a sudden it stirs up these things. And so the conversations sometimes force you to be a little bit uncomfortable. But then there was like, that was only maybe 10% of it. 90% of it was enjoying a great meal or watching a great
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
having great conversation or laughing. And it made me realize how often I had forced myself to be alone through this tough time and not reach out to people because I felt like I had to get myself through it. I had to do it. And yes, at the end of the day, like you have to work on it. But every single time that I would leave her apartment and we had a great conversation, or I would call my friends or my friends would check in on me and I would be able to get my thoughts out or
Yeah.
just talk about the things we're doing in our life. I was like, there's so many better and bigger things to talk about and focus on, one. And two, when you have friends that are supportive and they are your community, it reminds you that you're not on your own. But truly, it's like you feel that way sometimes in a breakup or when just life's giving you a tough time because you're in your head so much you don't realize it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the minute you get it out of your head and you get to other people and they can say like, "Hey, I've gone through this and like this is totally valid or this is totally normal or I would do this too," or just to have someone come back with a response and being like, "No, you're so right." Because I feel like when you're in a breakup, I'm gonna focus on that part. When you're the person that maybe didn't want to initiate that breakup or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
you feel like you're in the wrong. You feel like you're wrong
Yeah.
because you feel like when someone breaks up with you or didn't go right, you almost feel without realizing this is something I learned subconsciously. You kind of feel like if you didn't
Mhm.
want to do it, you feel like, okay, so something must have been wrong with me or what did I cause? Whatever.
Yeah.
And so to hear that the feelings that you're feeling is valid through your community of people
Yeah.
is so comforting. And so I learned how to be alone, but I also learned how to have company because back to my thing, right post college, I'd never been in a situation where I wasn't not choosing to be around people. I had
Yeah.
people around me my entire life. I had a team, I had roommates, I had best friends living in college. I got to choose my times when I wanted to be
Mm.
alone.
Mhm.
Post college, I didn't get to choose.
Yeah.
Yours so it those 3 things, I really focused on, and so not only did it bring me great opportunities for work, but it brought me, like, even closer to my friends,
Yeah.
that weren't even in my circle, like, of proximity. Like,
Yeah.
we were not living in the same place. We all became closer,
Yeah.
and I was reminded to focus on the good things in my
Yeah.
life.
Love it. I'm so glad you're in the space where you're at right now. It's so refreshing to see you be more you right now. And for a while, it was a little tough, but we go through hard things for a reason. And here we are. And you're doing amazing things, just like we talked about 2 weeks ago with Sydney. I'm just amazed by you girls and what you are saying yes to and what you're able to do. But it's also knowing that you are putting yourself in a place or position to say yes or to because you've done the work. This is my whole point is that you're doing the hard work. You've prepared. You have worked on yourself. You guys are both very, very mature young women, and that makes a big impact as well. I love you, and I'm really proud of you. And I've loved seeing the evolution of you over the last year and you becoming more of who you were supposed to be. So I'm so
Me too, sister. Me too. Yeah,
right.
I
All right,
know.
guys.
Love you
Well,
too.
I'll put all the things in the show notes of where you can find Avery and how you can pay attention if you're interested. If you've got a young girl, especially one that's in sports, I would highly recommend following her because I think she's got a lot of great things she shares on her social media of what she's doing, who she's meeting, the opportunities she's able to do and have because of her love of sports. And I really want young girls in sports to know that the sky's the limit and they are just as valid being out there as any boy. Because a lot of guys out there are giving comments about football and they never put pads on either. So there's nothing different about you versus that person. Thank you again for being here. I am so grateful for your time. And if you liked what you heard, please head to where you listen to podcasts, rate and review. Please share on Instagram, your social media channels, wherever else you go, so we can reach as many people as possible so they can meet these amazing women and hear these conversations. If you'd like to connect further, you can find me over at my website at HallieSawyer.com or on Instagram. I'm usually going to be at Hallie_Sawyer or The Odd Life, which is this podcast specific Instagram account. All right. Have a great day, everyone. And we'll see you soon.